Well, we're the freaks of the industry. My man Money B.
Oh, my mellow shot.
The freaks of the industry. And when you see us backstage, be prepared to G.
Well, they say that birds do it, bees do it.
Do it.
Time to freak, Money B gets to it. Not a heavyweight, but I go 12 rounds with a jab and a stick. I'm going lick for lick, so give me the helmet. I'll be the stunt man. Just relax, and I won't front like Anita. I'm giving you the best that I got, and I'll be taking it slow. Never missing a spot, yes. Caressing your back with chest to chest, she kissing on my freckles. I nibble around your ears before I suck upon your neck. Oh, Money B. Yeah, that's what you'll be screaming and creaming. But it's not a wet dream, it's the real, the freaky dog, Doc Nasty. Never letting the kitty cat get past me without picking it up, petting, teasing it, taking it on home and pleasing it.
Cause we're the freaks of the industry. You's a freak, Money B.
Got that shot, G.
The freaks of the industry. And when you see us backstage, be prepared to G. Say you're G'ing.
G'ing?
Nobody else is seeing. And the freak that you're with is in front of you, bending over naked and she's leaning on the dresser.
Booyah.
You're looking at her from the rear.
Yeah.
She looks just like Vanessa.
Kyle Hodges. I'm originally from Martinsville, Indiana, which is close to Indianapolis and Bloomington. So, been in Chicago 4 years, going on 5 now. I'm the Minister of Propaganda for Dark Matter Coffee. I don't know.
Used to work with me at Reckless.
Used to work with you at Reckless. I've worked several, like 4 different record stores over the course of many years. Used to own a record store.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Used to own. My twin brother and I used to own Carmen Greenwood. I picked a near and dear, close to my 15-year-old heart. Digital Underground Sex Packets. When I was growing up in Martinsville, we were always accused of being racist. So it's that reverse stigma kind of say, you know. And most of my friends were doing into punk rock and things like that, and my punk rock was hip hop. So, as you've had before, the Takes a Nation a Million to Hold Us Back. You know, I heard that album. I heard other albums before. My older brother was kind enough to get me into Run DMC and Fat Boys, and I remember Beat Street coming out, and just my mind was blown. You know, I can still rap Baptize the Beat and everything nonstop, but you know, yeah, hearing hip hop, it just changed the game. I didn't really want to hear rock and roll at all. I didn't care about punk that much. It was all about hip hop, and you know, not understanding what I was listening to, especially with like Public Enemy and stuff. You know, I started really getting into it, and fast forwarding a couple more years, you know, 4 or 5 years into it. After Third Base and all the Def Jam classics and things like that, you get Digital Underground Sex Packets. And for, you know, a teenager, Midwestern white teenager, you hear Sex Packets. You even see, I mean, you look at it. I mean, it's Sex Packets. It's, you're looking at this album, you're just like, I need to own that. Like, I need to, what is that? What does that mean? It's got sex in it, and outside of that, like, you know, it's hip hop. So, okay, cool. You know, first time I had the cassette, and back in the day, you know, we only had maybe 10 cassettes. You know, I didn't have a lot of money, so we didn't have that many. So you would listen to something over and over and over again, because it was unlike any other hip hop album I had heard. I'd heard Public Enemy that was very political. I had also heard, like I said, the Third Base or Fat Boys, or Cool Mo D, King T, all these other guys. So I was hearing East Coast and West Coast. But, you know, when I heard Digital Underground, all of a sudden, you know, I'd never heard P-Funk or Parliament or George Clinton or anything like that. And so I was hearing these samples of stuff that rock-wise, that I'd never really heard. I mean, I saw Purple Rain at the drive-in, but I hadn't heard anybody sample Prince. And especially not a couple of Prince songs in a hip-hop album. You know, so after I got past the sex packets part, the whole sex thing, and started going into it, for a young mind in the 80s and in the early 90s, I mean, this album has a vast amount of social and political hot points. I mean, you're coming out of the 80s where the Reagan era, you know, you have AIDS, you have, you know, the cocaine years, and you also have you know, the definitive rise of not only hip hop, but you're also having, you know, gangster rap and the East Coast, West Coast thing. And, you know, this was one of the first West Coast that I heard that wasn't a lot of gangster rap. All my friends who were starting to get into hip hop or rap were more NWA or Luke Skywalker. Those were the sexual stuff that they were getting into, and that was all that parental advisory. So you know, you were trying to do anything just to get the angst out, or, you know, rebellion, I guess you could say. And this album didn't. It had the rebellion, but it was actually teaching you something. It wasn't just, you know, you weren't just saying pussy just to say pussy. You know, you weren't talking about sex or, you know, just to talk about sex. You know, there was a concept behind it, and the concept is to do the genetically modified sexual experience so you could control your wet dreams as you were sleeping. And this was actually a concept that was trying to get a grant from the government to actually do these pills so they could give them intended for astronauts and other government figures who could not necessarily, you know, be in situations where they could not experience, shall we say, sex. So these guys, you know, they were out there. Humpty Dance is actually the one track that's the oddball track in the actual record, which goes along with the singles anyway, you know what I mean? Like, if people hear that single and it goes big all over the radio, especially in the 80s and 90s when radio was still dominant, and they expect that record to be like that single, you know, especially when you're young too. You're just like, what? Oh, it doesn't sound like this? Why didn't they make every song like this? And while it didn't, you know, that wasn't the first single, you know, Do What You Like was, but that was corny, you know. So, you know, Humpty Dance was just another persona, another, you know, imaginary like creature, person. 15-year-old me loved it because it was, you know, sexual in nature, obviously, you know. You know, 41-year-old me loves it because it's, for me, hip-hop has always been about, the beat. It's always been about the way the MC, the lyrical content, and the music are coming together. You know, and a lot of times I was easily overlooking what was being said in place of how it was being said and what the music that was complimented on. And I can assure you, for probably the first several weeks that I played this, I was like, I could hear that there was sexual tension and things in there, and it was about that, but at the same time, it wasn't penetrating. Like, it was just kind of like, oh, I mean, the bass line on that, I mean, it just. I heard NWA and that was really cool, but that was also very aggressive. My personality is, you know, I've always tried to like fight that aggression. And I heard Two Live Crew. And Two Live Crew was cool for shock, but it didn't have anything for me. Like it didn't have anything. There was no mental thing there, and that's why I've always gone back to this album too.
I think something like Two Live Crew is about sex. Freaks of the Industry is sexy.
Yeah, with the you know, I mean, and I know Shock G and he was saying when they were writing this though too, that they were also trying to touch on a song for ladies and touch on some things that were maybe taboo. They're also trying to talk to the female perspective as well. They're not worried about intriguing the male listener. They want to intrigue. They specifically were making a song for the female listeners on this. You know, and then you got the little kind of Barry Manilow little interlude.
It's very sexy.
I mean, I've always been a huge Digital Underground fan. You know, but they've never really made another album like this. I mean, you know, they tried, you know. So I mean, they still with the concept albums. I mean, if you look at Sons of the P and things like that too, they were still trying to capture the magic off of Sex Packets, and they never really did that, unfortunately. I mean, I think Do What You Like it's the perfect, although this is the first single, it's the perfect way to actually end the album as well too, because I mean, I think that is a great thing about Digital Underground is that it does just kind of lay it all out there and just say, all right, you know, they were there. I don't want to say they were hippies, but they kind of had that same mentality, you know, big family, big, you know, doing what you do and how you do it and be accepting of everybody and everything. And I think that's great. I mean, I think that after this album, as much fun as it has, and as much as the kind of the little heavier content, even though it was masked a little bit more playful, there's still some heavy content in that. I think the whole Do What You Like, perfect way to end it. And it's the only hip hop song other than LL Cool J's Milky Cereal that I can think of that talks about eating cereal. And I don't know about you, but as a kid, that was like one of my favorite things to do was eat cereal and do what you like. So there you go. Makes it a classic in my book.